What's up, guys? Welcome back to Blondes Building Equity. This guest was super hard for us to track down. He is a busy, busy man, and that's because he's just accomplished so much. And so, he's got a lot of people counting on him. So he's really, really busy, but I'm so excited to have him today. He has done over 6,000 wholesales. He is in 140 markets across the country. It is insane. He has Astro Flipping with almost 5,000 members, a huge community that's die hard for him. And he has a show with Pace Morby. I'm a huge fan of Pace Morby. So that's super awesome. So this guy is honestly doing it all. And it's really exciting. He's been in the business for 20 years. So I'm super excited to have him on and learn anything that we can from him today. So welcome, Jamil. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you guys for having me on. Again, really sorry for how hard it was to do this, but I'm really excited to be on here and welcome. Nice to meet all of your audience and guests. Thanks for tuning in, guys. So a little bit about me. I've been in real estate for a couple of decades. I have actually started in 2002, where I accidentally stumbled into wholesaling as a way for me to make some money. I didn't have any mentors or any coaches coming up. I actually started my real estate career in Canada. That's where I grew up. And basically accidentally found wholesaling because my business partner at the time was looking for a specific type of house that him and his father could demolish and build luxury duplexes on. So I was walking my dog and called a house that was for rent and asked the lady if she'd be interested in selling her house instead of renting it. And that unfolded for me what became the most incredible career of my life. And so since then, I had on my first ascent in my career in real estate, I had amassed around $12 million in income from my wholesale career. And then 2008 happened and I lost everything. Not only did I lose all my money, but I ended up bankrupting myself, my parents, my sister. We all became homeless because of personal guarantees that I asked everybody to sign on loans that I was taking out for construction purposes. So I've seen a lot. I've seen, the highs, I've seen the lows. I had to rebuild myself from that catastrophe and the first tanking of the real estate market in the Great Recession. And so, I feel like I have a good understanding of how to really do this business in a way that's safe and ethical. And I think that's one of the things that people gravitate towards me for in wholesale, because, wholesaling has a real interesting rap out there. Some people will look at wholesalers as, opportunists or people who may or may not add, a tremendous amount of value to a situation. For me, I always look at wholesaling from an ethical point of view, right? There is no business in trying to take equity from people. In fact, my whole philosophy on what we do is I love to give sellers as much as I can possibly give them on a house, but also knowing that I have to leave enough meat on the bone for my buyer once I sell them a contract. And so there's a very fine and delicate balance that's required when you are doing this business. And I think that's the reason why Bigger Pockets made me the subject matter expert for wholesale, because leading even up to this point, Bigger Pockets wasn't super interested in promoting wholesalers either. So I feel like I'm forging a path for wholesale to become a very respected way to invest in real estate.
Wow, that's actually really good to hear, because I have the same thought process too about wholesaling, where it does feel like sometimes they just want a quick buck, and there are a lot of people that do. And so maybe it gives the people a bad name that actually have good intentions, but it's the same thing for flippers. Like we got told that all the time by the neighbors, like, oh, you guys are flippers. Like you're probably not doing a good job, blah, blah, blah. Like you're just using cheap materials. And we are very intentional with our flips, and we don't just use cheap materials because we want our name to transcend just a couple flips. So you don't do, really bad flips and have a name that transcends that. So I really think that's inspiring.
And I really appreciate that as well, because for us as investors, you can't be good at it all. And having, you have those big companies where you have the wholesaling within the flipping company. But for those of us that don't, we would love an honest
Mhm.
wholesaler that we
Yeah.
can rely on, that's bringing us the deal, that can cut that out of our time block every
Mhm.
single day for also finding the deals. And so, but we've worked with, not honest wholesalers, and there's hidden fees and all these
Yeah.
things that come up, and they'll say anything to get the deal done. And I feel like kind of like real estate agents sometimes too,
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it's
In every business.
yeah, in every business, you can't say everybody's bad. But if you guys are the honest wholesalers, I think as an investor, that's a dream.
Yeah.
For all of us to be able to be like, wow, I can trust you and you're going to supply leads. That's huge. So
I
it's
want to
awesome.
dive into when you lost everything, because I don't think people talk about that enough. When you were back in like 2008, so were you flipping and were you just over leveraged, and that's what kind of led to the downfall, or what exactly happened?
Great question. So I had was primarily wholesaling, and that's where I generated all of my money really. But yeah, I let ego get the best of me, and what I had seen is I was wholesaling apartment. I went from single family houses to then wholesaling apartment buildings, because I realized at that point, wow, there's a business model in finding projects or potential projects for developers, whether they be small builders or even people who are doing condo conversions. And so in that thought process, I realized, okay, well, I can just drive around and look for these apartment buildings that have handwritten for rent signs on them and call them, because, if a person's got a handwritten for rent sign outside of a 20-unit building, it's very unlikely that they have a property manager. And I was right most of the time. So I would talk to these, owner operators of these small multifamily buildings, and I would put them under contract and wholesale them to developers who were doing condo conversions. Well, there was this one developer that I sold to that, came to meet me one day, and he pulls up in this beautiful Rolls Royce Phantom. And I'm like, wow, what is it like to have a car like that, or to be that rich? Like, this guy really has it figured out. And I was young too, in my mid 20s. And so it all kind of really got the best of me. And I decided I wanted to be a developer as well and do these condo conversions. And so instead of even starting small, I made so many mistakes at this point, right? Instead of starting small and just doing one apartment building, I bought 4 of them, right? And so I close on these 4 buildings. And this is the part that was really hard for me to understand and swallow. See, I ended up getting these construction loans from the same company that gave me the acquisition loan. And the way that they would do their financing was they would have you pre-sell 50% of a project before they would give you the financing. But if you could pre-sell 50% of the project, they would essentially finance you like 80%. And so that was pretty attractive for me. And that's 80% for acquisition and 100% of renovation. So, that's really good. So I'm in these conversions, and then all of a sudden the credit crunch happens, and the lending institution calls us and says, hey, I know we have given you these construction or these acquisition loans and partial construction loans to do your projects, but our lending standards have changed. And so all of the pre-approvals that you have for those buyers that we based our loan off of, they need to be re-qualified. And I'm like, you can do that? They said, yeah, if you read the document that you signed, our mortgage, there's a provision in there that says if the economic conditions change, we reserve the right to re-qualify your loan.
Oh, God.
And so they obviously re-qualified all the people. And because the standards had changed so dramatically, barely any of them re-qualified. So because of that, they called every single one of my loans. And I had no way to pay these loans off. We're talking millions and millions of dollars, and they want the money in 30 days. And so it was tough. It was a really, really difficult thing for me, because, I talk about this a lot, that I do fix and flip, and we do a pretty good job fixing and flipping. My sister, just like you two, is really keen on design. I actually had a chance to look at some of your guys' remodels before I hopped onto the podcast today, and you guys do a beautiful job. And I love that, and I love the fact that you're so intentional and so responsible in the way that you do your work. My sister is very, very much like that. She really takes pride in the projects that we do. But if it was me, if I was the person that was going to be managing those projects, I would never do as good of a job as she does. And so for me, I believe in really honing in on what your like real passion in this business is, and do that, you know? And so I love deals. I love deal making. I'm a deal junkie. I love evaluating property. I love underwriting deals. I love looking for creative opportunities to add value and spot potential. For me, that's just the stuff that wakes me up in the middle of the night, just excited, you know? It gets me up in the morning and gets me out of my bed faster than anybody, because I enjoy what I do as a wholesaler so much. And so I've just leaned into that now. You know, I really take pride in what we do. I love showing people how I wholesale and how they can reach financial independence really without, you know, needing any money, any credit.
Yeah.
I mean, I have one of my youngest students is 15 years old. And this, you know, he started when he was 15. He's 17 now. But can you imagine being 17 years old and making $50,000 a month?
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine.
Insane. You know?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. And I think with wholesaling, it's such a great opportunity, especially, you know, at different times of the market. Like you said, I think a lot of influencers in the real estate space really pass over the amount of risk that you take on, and it can be really, really scary. And with what you said, I think it's so important to talk about the losses and the wins, so people are aware that, because most of us who do get into real estate, we get into it for a reason. We have this confidence in ourselves. We're natural entrepreneurs. We want more out of life, but our ego can easily get in the way because we think, oh, we're special and we're meant to make millions of dollars or whatever, because that's most entrepreneurs, right? And then you can end up in a situation where you get in trouble. And I think that just comes with time and with learning. And so everybody has a different strategy. Obviously, Grant Cardone will tell you it's the same amount of work for one duplex as it is a 50, you know,
but you lose a lot more.
50,000 unit apartment complex. And maybe it is, but the amount of knowledge that is required so that your investors are safe is not the same. And even us, we've been so humbled throughout this journey of real estate investing, just because, you know what, we are in LA and our market is multi-million-dollar houses. And we love to do that because we love design, but it's also the risk you take on when the market is shifting and all these things happening. It's a lot different than if I'm doing a $200,000 house, if I'm doing a $3 million. Because, and so even to our audience and preaching, it's like, we always want to be upfront and honest, like, this is scarier and I don't think you should start here, you know? And like, if you lose on this deal, you're losing 200 grand. And you're not losing 20 grand. And with wholesaling, I think that's so beautiful, because that's an amazing way to start, where you learn how to find deals, you learn how to work with investors, and the risk is very, very minimal. So I think a great place to start for people who don't have money, and that's most people starting out.
And another thing I kind of learned from your story is it sounded like you got approved for that loan very quickly. It seemed almost too good to be true. And that's kind of the same for like the lenders that we went with. Our first two deals were like $2 million each. And, you know, we're like 25, we're just starting out flipping houses, and we got approved right away. And it was like 85% leveraged, 100% of the construction. And what I'm realizing, if something's too good to be true, most of the time those people aren't doing the correct due diligence, which they didn't on our project. And now we learned, oh, the reason we didn't get approved for these other ones is because there were a few things that we kind of overstepped with this deal and didn't correctly do the proper due diligence. So if it's too good to be true, you might want to check some other options, because that's actually not good for you. You don't just want to get money handed to you too easily, because then what happened to you, like, that's the scariest thing ever. You're in those loans, and then they're like, by the way, the market's changing, we need to do more due diligence. And you're already in it, and you're like, so now you need to do more due diligence? What do you mean? Where was that before? What was really interesting
with them is they ended up taking the assets back, but then they sold them all for massive profits. So it's like,
oh my God.
I mean, I don't at some level, I really, I don't believe in going back and like, trying to ruffle old feathers and create a stink where there's, no, I'm moving forward and life is phenomenal for me. So I don't have time for negativity. But in reality, I think that what happened to me was predatory and fraud. I think that because it was a very small institution, I wouldn't even call it an institution, a very small, lending firm. And I think that they knew what they were doing. I think that they knew really that I was not going to be able to get these refinanced very easily. And they liked the assets. And so they ended up getting them. And they made so much money reselling those properties. It sickened me.
And that's why, like, I think a lot of people in this world, and not everybody, there's so many amazing people in this world. And I was an eternal optimist. I love everyone. And I have just been in business, learned that, you know what? Most people, especially in business, it's a dog-eat-dog world. Everybody's trying to make money and you have to have your own back. You cannot fully, if someone tells you we bought a property with an easement that we were lied to about and all these things. And at the end of the day, we sat down with each other and we're like, this is our own fault. This is our own problem because we should have not trusted his word. We should have done the due diligence on our own, had our lawyer check it out. Like those are things like, unfortunately, you have to rely on like your own due diligence and yourself. Never just trust someone. Always do your own due diligence. Always check what's going on because some people, and hopefully, after years and years and years in the business, you weed those people out. But in the beginning of the business, you're an easy prey. And unfortunately, people take advantage of that. So that's why it's so important, I think, for us to put in those hours, put in the time, put in the years before you take the big, big leaps. Start and build that foundation, build a good team around you that you can trust. That if they say this property is good, you jump. But that's going to take time. And so a lot of people wanted the get rich quick method, and I think there's a lot of opportunities to make amazing money, but I think people need to have a little bit more realistic mindset on what it takes to be a deca millionaire or a, 100 millionaire.
But you know what Grant Cardone never says? He always is like, it's the same amount of work for a $10 million property as it is like a $200,000 property or whatever. But it's not the same risk. And that's what we learned. Like, yeah, we get it. It's the same amount of work, but I mean, we're losing 200 grand, which we probably could have only lost like 20 grand. Like that's not the same risk involved, even though it's the same amount of work.
But so wow, you've been super inspiring so far. So now you're focused, you fully focus on wholesaling, but you said, do you have a division of flipping with your sister?
Yeah, I flip houses with my sister, Pace Morby, and his wife, Laura. That's what we do on our television show, Triple Digit Flip, that's on A&E. And that's a lot of fun for us. We flip, a few houses every year, and I have a great time with my best friend and my family flipping those houses. And because we have such a great wholesale operation, it really lets us find those like really juicy diamonds in the rough. So we have, a little bit of an advantage there because I can look at a property and be like, ooh, that would be a great one for the show. And then, we take it and flip it on our television show. So it's great. We're also, giving ourselves an opportunity to realize additional revenue by going vertical on those flips as well, right? So it's a good addition to our business.
Do you keep any of them long term, and how do you decide if you're going to keep it long term? Like, what are the qualifications?
So myself personally, I do. I have I'm collecting luxury assets, in the $1 million to $2 million mark, where my goal is to have around 20 of those where I just have them all paid off at different locations around the country. And then I do short-term rentals on there. So I'm staying at my one here in Marina Del Rey right now, and it's right on the water. I'm, looking out at the Pacific right now and doing this podcast with you guys. And this is one of those assets that I own. And I had originally intended on Airbnb-ing this property, but I just love it too much, and I don't want strangers sleeping in my bed. So we don't short-term rental this one, but all the other ones that I own, we do short-term rentals on them.
And where are you located? Where do you live?
I live primarily in Phoenix, Arizona, but I'm here in LA as often as I can be.
Yeah, and that's a short, quick flight.
Yeah.
So
it is, 45 minutes.
That's kind of cool though, that you can have your properties in places that you also want to go and visit. I think that is part of our goals too. It's not just like having rentals or having investment properties. Like I want to be able to have houses that I can Airbnb, but also they're destination places that I want to go travel to. Because then you have fun along the way too. You don't have somewhere, some investment in a property that you never want to go visit.
You're like it's in Georgia.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to go to Georgia. What the heck?
Actually, there's some really beautiful places in Atlanta that
Actually, Atlanta is really popular.
If you haven't hung out there before, I would highly recommend you checking it out. There's a neighborhood in Atlanta called Ainsley Park that is like just gorgeous. It's so beautiful there. You should definitely see what you're missing.
Yeah, and actually a lot of production now, a lot of movie production is in Atlanta. So a lot's happening in Atlanta. Why did I not put together that Georgia?
I know. I think Atlanta is its own place too.
Right? So you talked about
you meant Wisconsin.
I was like, because you say Atlanta, I'm like, well, everyone wants to go to Atlanta, but Georgia just sounds like some sort of like Midwestern place.
Maybe I'm thinking Wisconsin. But you talked about going through the last big recession. And, that is, I feel like such an awesome thing. I know that was really, really hard for you, but you probably learned so much through that. And so my question for you is, how are you feeling about today's economy and what are you prepping for and what do you think will happen?
I mean, I'm a little nervous about today's economy. I'll be 100% transparent. I think that we have not even scratched the surface of the economic turmoil that's coming around the corner. I believe that we have printed way too much money, and I don't have a lot of confidence in the plan on how it's going to be rectified, really. Personally, however, though, I have always, since the Great Recession, I have been a very conservative person. So I have, like I had mentioned earlier, I no longer do debt. I own everything that I have outright.
Wow.
I may acquire a property very quickly using hard money, but I pay that off as quickly as I can, because my goal is I want to be able to have at least, $250,000 in monthly income without ever even having to wake up and do anything. Right. And so that's what I'm working towards. I'm very close with respect to my passive income, with my rentals. And so that's essentially, and I know that this might sound a little bit tone deaf, but I'm taking care of myself in that manner. And I'm teaching the people that are in my community to take care of themselves in that manner as well. There's a lot of people out there that are leveraging or using creative finance as their way to acquire property. And I have absolutely nothing against it. I think that it's a very smart, especially if you're picking up notes that are like 2 to 4%. But when you get beyond that, when you start to see people collecting leverage, I think that it's a dangerous game. And I think that with the economy the way that it is right now, we really don't know what's coming around the corner, right? We've seen with COVID, we had no idea the way that real estate was going to get affected by COVID, right?
Yeah.
But we saw it happen. Everyone was trapped in their homes, and then all of a sudden everyone was moving, and then all of a sudden, we have this massive exodus out of California, and then you've got places like Boise, Idaho popping off. Like, it's like, what is going on here, right? And to add to that, I think that if you look at our banking system, it's a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
I was just telling you this yesterday. I went into, because I'm for crypto in the long run. I think a lot needs to happen, but I was just going in. I was like, the banking system is they take your money and then they go trade it in the markets. You have no money in the account. It says $1 million, you have zero in there. So if they don't have the money like happen, they don't have the money.
I don't know where your money is safe nowadays, especially when you're just starting out and you don't have that knowledge in maybe real estate yet. You don't have enough knowledge to put all your money into it. Like, where is your money safe? If not the bank, if not 100% real estate.
Decentralized finance.
Well, there's whole life policies are actually where I would say you have the most security, and a lot of people are choosing to do this where they're acting as their own bank, where you can basically deposit money into a whole life insurance policy, and they'll pay you an incredible return on that deposit. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that insurance companies are required to, and they're constantly being stress tested, but they need to be able to pay out 100% of their benefits at any time. And so insurance companies are actually way better capitalized than banks.
Interesting. But you have to die to get your money, right?
No. Not enough. No, that's a complete myth.
Oh.
So a whole life policies are they're essentially like financial. It's like a financial institution. You create your own bank.
Wow. There's also a lot of money-making opportunities in insurance who people who work in insurance. We met a billionaire and we're like, what do you do? He's like, life insurance. He's like, it's the best thing ever. I'm like, so I'll have to pick his brain on that and see what's all happening with insurance.
And be careful with that, because not all products are created equal. So you want to make sure that when you are dealing with or asking somebody that, about advice on this, make sure that they're a fiduciary. A lot of financial advisors or people who sell these products are not fiduciaries. And that means that they can sell you products that aren't to your benefit. They can sell you products that benefit them more than they do you.
Right.
However, a fiduciary is required to have your best interests at heart legally. And they're not allowed to take any kickbacks or any compensation for the products that they sell you. And so they're not incentivized to put you into policies or into situations. They're incentivized to take care of you.
So you were talking about creative finance, and I think when we first got into real estate, it was like 6 years ago, and it was kind of when the market was like an on and up and up. And when we started thinking about investing, it was like 3 years ago, which real estate was going crazy. Everyone was talking about the equity build and leveraging yourself to make more money. If you leverage yourself, you can make 10x more than if you use your own money. And now that we're going into a downturn market, people are starting to get a little bit more like, their opinions change a little bit. Like, don't over leverage yourself too much. And have you always had that opinion about not over leveraging yourself, even in a market that's like an upturn where you're getting a lot of equity build?
Not always had, because I obviously got kicked in the teeth in the first my first go round. But I think the trauma and the PTSD from losing everything is what created the very conservative approach that I take to my investing strategies now. And so, I credit going through that for the way that I behave now with my money. And could I have a lot more right now if I leveraged? 1,000%. Now let me tell you guys, that doesn't mean that I don't ever use leverage.
Right.
I do. It's just for my own personal assets. I don't like leverage, but I use hard money when I'm flipping.
Right.
Yeah. But it's non-recourse. Right. And so if I am going to use leverage, I'm going to use leverage that's non-recourse, because I'm okay to walk away and lose what I've put in, but I'm not okay to have you come and take my home again.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And you learn from past.
Yeah.
It is just so funny because obviously, you said you and Pace are amazing friends, right? And you just have very, very, very different outlooks. And it's cool that you guys can be such good friends. But oh my goodness, it could not be more different. He's very creative finance, figure out how to make the deal happen.
You just have to be so smart when you're doing creative finance, which they don't stress enough. Like, you got to be an expert at finding the deal. You can't just creative finance on a bad deal, because then you like shoot yourself in the foot. It needs to be like,
he's very, very good at being able to understand the note as an asset class, and that I had talked to him about this last week, where I was like, it's really interesting that 10 years ago, single family homes were not considered an asset class. Today, they're an asset class.
Yeah.
I believe that in the next 5 years, because of where interest rates are, the 2 to 4% mortgage will become an asset class. The only thing that I have concerns about is the way that subject to really is structured, is that the financial institution that is involved in that deal isn't on board, right? There is a clause in every mortgage that has the potential to be called. if a lending institution doesn't like the fact that a property has been transferred. Now, to Pace's benefit, he has found solutions to that, and I haven't explored them with him, but I trust that he's been able to figure out how to really calm any anxiety that one might have about the due on sale clause or any potential risks that are involved in creative finance. But he is a special person, like he's really, really intelligent, and he's figured this out. And I think that his community as well, the sub 2 community, they all are really being led by somebody who is truly a savant when it comes to being able to understand creative deal structure. And so, if I was going to be the kind of person that did collect leverage, I would do it the way that Pace does. But again, just completely different philosophies when it comes to how we invest. And, we often go back and forth, right? He's like, Jamil, there's something to be said about the way you do it too, right? He's like, some days it feels like I would love to be more like you. Where, instead of having thousands of doors, you have 100 doors or whatever, and you own them all. And he's like, so it's a different approach, but we're all getting to the same thing, which is give me the money, honey.
Yeah. And the financial freedom, right?
Yeah. That's why it's important to have that one thing, like you said in the beginning, that you're actually passionate about, that will see you through the hard times and not trying to do a million things at once.
Yeah. And so, obviously maybe you have a little bit of PTSD from the last recession, but so I want to know your plan, your game plan for the next 3 to 5 years. Are you just going to wholesale, focus on that?
Yeah, I am absolutely focusing on my wholesale business. I am focusing on growing our franchises and continuing to expand our Keighley operation. In addition to that, I've just really been enjoying the community that I've been building with Astro Flipping. And I have a tremendous amount of satisfaction from watching other people get success in their life. It's really interesting once you have figured out how to make enough money that I can't spend the money I make. I can't, right? So, and I'm a very simple person as well. So it's not like I need all these, fancy, shirts or clothing or anything like that. I'm just a real normal person. But what really moves me is getting texts from people that I'm coaching to say, hey man, I just made $20,000 and I can't tell you what that means to me. I've never had money like this before. And I've been working my entire life with barely $300 in my bank. And today is the first time that I've ever had thousands of dollars in my bank. And being able to be a part of someone's journey doing that, there's nothing in my life that even comes close. So with that said, for the next 3 to 5 years, I'm just really putting my head down and continuing to grow the community that I've been building. And I feel that, once there's going to be a point where it's going to burn me out, right? Yeah. There's no doubt, because I'm going 7 days a week right now with respect to just how much is on my plate. But I feel like if in 5 years' time, I will have impacted so many lives and been able to help so many people get what they want out of life, that even if I did hang it up, I would have felt that it was a really, really good run.
Wow. That's so inspiring.
Yeah, and that's super, and you've earned it, and I think that shows when you get that positive feedback that you're doing something so positive, and it's not like some people who are, taking from a community. You're really providing so much value, which is so, so beautiful. And we always hope that for the future, even when we get girls that come to us and they're like, I never thought a young girl could do it, blah, blah, blah. It's crazy. We talk about all the time, like having our separate audiences. And I love what I did for so long, travel and adventure. And it was an amazing career and I lived an amazing life. But that one text from a girl from Blondes Building Equity versus my millions of followers on other platforms, it's so crazy how that fills me up so much. And I'm like, wow, I really touched them. We talk about it all the time. I'm like, we really want to be able to make a difference with women and being like, you can do this too. It's a great, career with kids too, that if you get this passive income, you can be an amazing mom. So Yeah, that's hopefully where we're heading. We're trying to put in we want to be amazing at it first before we teach anyone else.
Yeah.
We want to be experts.
Patience. I've learned patience is like,
and you guys are really killing it with respect to the content that you're putting. Don't think that you're not helping people.
Yeah.
I like I said, I dove into your Instagram feed and I was really, really impressed. I was impressed with not only your projects, but the level of information that you're giving people. It's really good. And there's not enough folks that are paying attention to the details that you guys are paying attention to. I mean, look, I'm a wholesaler, which means that I'm primarily, my customers are you guys, right? Folks like you who are fixing and flipping. And I see all kinds of shenanigans when it comes to the products that people put out there, right? I hate that. I hate the fact that somebody will come in to a neighborhood and do an average job. Like there's where's the excellence these days? And so you guys are an example of that. You put excellent effort out, and there was one of your guys' posts I saw where you did a herringbone tile on a backsplash. And, looking at that floating shelf that you guys had over there, and I was like, that's a really, really clean look. And then when I heard what you guys had spent on that entire thing, it was like, I think you said $7,000. And I thought, man, people out there are getting charged like $40,000 for a kitchen, and here you've got your entire kitchen and you described it getting done at $7,000. I mean, somebody's got to be watching that and thinking, wait, really?
Oh, you're literally, you don't know how much that fills me up. This is my passion, and this is why I love fixing and flipping. I grew up so frugal, and then what I love design. And so even Jess would come and say, no, the flippers do that ugly design because it's the cheapest. And I'm like,
right.
No, Jess, I'm telling you, I'm going to make it the same exact price, but look good. Because it's obviously, we are flippers. We have to be on a budget, but doesn't mean it can't look good. And I was like, this Chloe tile is cheap, but I'm going to lay it in a herringbone and it's going to look like this. We're going to add a floating shelf because that cuts, we don't have to buy 7 cabinets because of that shelf, but it's in right now. It's fun. It's, so
and he charged us the same amount for doing the herringbone that he would have placing it the regular way.
That was some negotiation, but because he wanted to charge more for the herringbone laying it. Sure. But, we made it work because we give him other jobs and stuff like that. But I think there is so much of a way to make both design and, project management costs work. So that's what I'm obsessed with. And I can, because I get all my stuff, I get it from Amazon, I get it from House, I get it from places like that. All my fixtures are from Amazon, but I do crazy research on the reviews. I look into what looks good.
You put intentional time into it, which is, I think, a lost art in the flipping business because it is all about the numbers and the money. And for us, we're able to forego a little bit of the profit just for our name to be and our reputation, just to be a little bit cleaner, to have the design and the details matter because we want that to be a part of our brand.
Yeah. I would love someone to be there are name brand homes now, and it's maybe it's not, you're not getting this crazy unique home, but if someone was like, oh, I would love a Blondes Building Equity home, I'd be like, yes, that for me would be so fun and so amazing.
So do either of you ever get tempted to not be blonde?
Oh, I'm not even blonde. We came up with that name 7 years ago or 6 years ago when we were both bleach blonde. Now we're both growing out of it.
Both our roots are growing and we're
brown. And I'm not dyeing my hair anymore because I kind of just like it natural. But our name is Blondes Building Equity. So I'm not quite sure. We may have to change it to Brunettes Building Equity.
Well, we started as Kins and Jess Realty because we were agents. We weren't investors until, recently, but we were agents. So maybe we might need to be Kins and Jess something.
Yeah, we might might change it because I'm not gonna go blonde anymore.
Yeah, we got to navigate,
great.
but we value building a brand. And I think a lot of people have really seen that on social media. They're following the Ryan Pineda method, where you build like it really shows what it can do. And we've known that because we've built our brands in the past in other genres. And now I'm like, we value that so much. So we'll really have to think about the name because we are going all out on the brand. And I think we're excited. Hopefully, 2 young girls is something unique and different to the real estate world.
But putting in the actual time and work.
Yeah.
That's what we learned too. Not just to be like those girls right away and doing $1 million deals. Like, I think we kind of have been humbled a little bit and we're learning when we do teach people, patience is something that is at the forefront that we want to teach people. Like, it doesn't happen overnight. And we're not here to sell you the dream overnight. We're here to sell you the inspiration for a long-term business if you want to put the time in.
Yeah. My last question for you, because I would love to know, is what is your best strategy to find deals? Are you cold calling? Are you doing, TV ads? I know so many people have different strategies. What's yours?
So my most lucrative strategy for finding deals is working with real estate agents, actually.
Nice.
I have perfected an outreach process that we call and have coined agent outreach, where we will communicate with real estate agents and follow up with them in a very intentional and timed process where we get their pocket listings before they're listed on the MLS.
Wow.
And so I have not only mastered that approach, but my entire company is based off of collaborating and working with real estate agents. And everybody that I teach is also being taught how to work and network with real estate agents to do their business. Now, here's the beauty of doing that. So a lot of people who are in my game, they cold call, right? And so let's look at that for a moment. In order to get a deal, cold calling, you need to talk to at least 200 homeowners, all right? Now, not only do you have to talk to 200 homeowners, but you're going to need to talk to that homeowner roughly 8 to 16 times before the deal gets done.
Yeah, we've been there. Ooh.
Right? So now think about that. As soon as that deal is done, is there another deal around the corner with that same homeowner? Very likely no.
Not likely.
It's done. All that effort, all that time for one deal. As opposed to when you work with a real estate agent and you perform well, there can be another deal.
Wow.
And another deal and another deal. And so my entire my personal wholesale leads, it's all inbound now. I don't even have to call anybody. Every single day I get dozens and dozens and dozens of addresses from agents who know me, like me, trust me, know I perform. And I just deliver them what price I'll pay for a house. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. So I've built my business up to a level now where everything I get is referral. Everything I get is inbound. Can you imagine that?
That's
I
crazy.
have one real estate agent that I make $1 million a year with. If I didn't answer anybody else's calls but her calls, I would make $1 million a year incoming.
Wow. And how have you effectively built out your buyers list on the other end?
Well, that's the thing that Keeg Lee is known for, right?
Okay.
We're a disposition house. So we use a number of different strategies on how we build our buyers list. But the most lucrative or the most effective way to build your buyers list is looking at the tax records. I mean, there's really no secret sauce in that regard. It is a painstaking process of looking at who is transacting, who's buying cash or using hard money or private money loans to take their properties down, and then skip tracing or doing some work to find out who the principals of that organization are, and then connecting with them. Right. Another really solid hack that I have for people that might be in the wholesale game right now and are looking for buyers. This is one that is really good if you're looking for a specific buyer for a deal right now. So one thing that my team does every single day is we'll look at the MLS and we'll see all of the properties that have been listed today that appear to be flip properties. All right. And how do we know it's a flipped property? Well, a lot like what you guys do when you're listing your houses, they'll be very nicely remodeled. They'll typically be staged, but there won't be any clothes in the closet. Empty closets. So if I see empty closets and it be owned by an LLC, what I'll do is I'll actually go to opencorporates.com. I'll find out who the principal of that entity is. I'll then go to True People Search or batch skip tracing, whichever, and I'll skip trace that individual and then I'll call them. Now, my pitch is very simple. I just saw that you listed a property today on the MLS. It looks like a flip house. Great job, by the way. I think you did a phenomenal remodel on that. I'm wondering, since you just listed that one, are you in the market to pick up another? And 9 out of 10 times, as soon as a rehabber lists their flipped property, they're ready to pick up another deal. And so for me, I've had a tremendous amount of success selling properties to people who have just recently listed a flip.
Such a good idea.
Yeah.
Because we get that too when we listed Rosewood. Like we had so many phone calls like, "Hey, I just saw you flipped this house. Are you?" They knew we were investors at that point.
Yeah,
and we were also
they probably
like,
learned that strategy from me.
I know. I'm like, wait a second.
A little bit, yeah.
But I think the personal approach of them being like, I loved the design that you did. And like, when they compliment us, we're like, oh my God, like, thank you, and we're like, we trust them a little bit more because it's flattering. We're like, you really liked it?
Of course.
I know.
It's
wasn't
immediately
it a great
disarming
job?
because they found alignment with you, right? And
right.
so I love it.
Probably it was one of your students, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it.
I wouldn't doubt it, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, great approach. I loved it.
Yeah.
I was like, listen, we're not in the market now, but we will be. And you're the first one we're going to call.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then that person's job is to continuously follow up with you, right?
Yeah.
Not in an annoying way, but in a way where you won't forget who they are.
Right. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Wow. I feel like this added so much value and we appreciate you so much. Everybody listening, you guys, he is so busy. So make sure you go. We'll leave the links below of the best ways to find him. Go give him a follow. Go check him out. Check out his coaching program because he added so much free value to you guys today. So make sure you guys go check him out. We really, really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
And if you're ever in LA or ever anywhere, you have a friend in us.
Appreciate you both.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. You too.
Bye.